welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne, and disembodied hands, Quindy, Justin, and John. How are you all today? Hello, Mini Mommy. Everybody, having a good day? It's Thursday. Actually, this is social media day for me, so I have a bunch of stuff to do today, but I like Thursdays. It's kind of a break from my other things. And it's the day before Friday. It's important. This is also, guys, the exactly 2-year anniversary of me moving out here to California. So it's the 2-year anniversary of David and I living together. We still love each other, so it's all good. We're going to go out to a nice dinner tonight to celebrate. So that's what I'm looking forward to today. Yeah. Good deal, Kerniko. I mean, if you must get your work canceled, at least, you're using your time correctly. It's been that long. I know, right, Robin? Like 2 years. And it's been 3 years that we've been dating. Because we actually started dating almost exactly a year before that. That's our Adepticon anniversary. The 30th of March. So, yeah. Yes. It's been a while. Let me see here. Let's get in focus. We're going to do hair and face today. Or hair and skin, I should say. I'm going to start with tan skin. Because whenever I want to do a fair skin, I actually start with tanned. Tanned becomes my shadow and I work up from there. And I want to do a pretty fair skin on this guy. Because he's going to be a redhead. So I want to do this. And maybe I'll add a tiny bit of red to it. Rosy Skin Triad actually works really well with redheads. But today I wanted to start a little bit more golden. So we're going to see how it goes. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I did two. Actually, anybody who's on my Patreon, and that's patreon.com/paintingbig. We have a Discord for my Patreon and 2 videos. I did 2 videos at Adepticon. I participated in the one you're talking about. And then the other one, man, I can't remember. But it's a funny one, and it's a Games Workshop one where they came and I'm in it like 3 times, but it's a whole bunch of painters. Let me see. Let me look it up. The title is How to Save Games Workshop the Fun Way. And it's, what channel is it? I don't know who this guy's... Oh, Eons of Battle. So EONS of Battle. It's the title of Games Workshop Needs Fixing. And essentially he wandered around asking a whole bunch of people questions. So, yeah. Everyone's singing happy anniversary to Anne. That's right. Woohoo! I sing sub-anniversaries for you guys. It's not necessary. We'll get our tasty foods tonight, and that'll be our reward. But yeah, so 2 years of being here. And I still love the climate. Like, it's going to be 91 today, and I'm like, ooh, that's my temperature. I'm going to spend a bunch of the day outside. Uh-oh. My internet's good. I'm not getting any little flaggy things from the OBS. Yet. There's always time, right? All right, let's do skin. I'm going to mix up my basic skin. Now, tan skin goes with pretty much everything, guys. Just so you know, as far as hair colors go. If you're doing red or blonde hair, you want to actually work with this as your shadow and work up from it, as I just mentioned. Katie and Shock Trooper, huh? I had a friend who played Imperial Guard, and he was very all about it. But he did it for the tanks. He just liked military vehicles. Hello, green users. They took the Krieg names, so you were left with Cadians. That's funny. It's all cool. Man, I remember when they did all sorts of different, I guess they still have, they still did Catechins, they do Cadians. But what were the Araby, guys with Imperial Guard? They used to have, a really cool command figure for that. Almost dressed all in, kind of Arabian style stuff. Still looking for your home planet, yep. But I can't remember what those were called, what that chapter was. Tolerance. Yeah, yeah. I really liked them. I mean, they were silly because they had horses, but but still, I really like their style. Yeah, I like them. All right, so let's do a base coat with our tan skin. I kind of based tan skin on Old Games Workshop color, but it's not quite as orangey. The old bronzed flesh with the clear hex bottles line. I went kind of in that direction with it, but I didn't go as orange. I wanted something more natural looking. I think GW skin tones tend to oversaturate because they're most of their chapters use very intense colors, so it makes sense to also pop up the saturation on your skin tones. But here we're going a little more natural, so we're gonna go. You have tons of them, cool. Yeah, Talarn. Yep. Yeah, I really love their style. I forget what they had that one captain who was all decked out like an Arabian like chic, and it was neat. It was neat. He was a cool model. Used to own that one. Got lost in, I don't know how many moves since then. I may have actually even eBayed him. At one point I was eBaying my old GW stuff to because I wanted to take a vacation in an RV, rent an RV. So essentially I sold enough GW stuff, and that gives you an idea of what my collection was like. Sold enough of that to rent an RV to New York and back from Texas. So yeah, there was a lot of it. That was when we found out that Battlefleet Gothic like actually sold like crazy good on eBay if you had the rare stuff. But after working at Games Workshop, I had a ton of metal, and I just had a ton of models. So, but yeah, I liked those old IG guys, the Arabian style ones. But then I love the Arabian Nights, so it's not like surprising, right? So this is, I thinned it too much for one thing. Thin base coat is nice, smooth base coat, but also annoying, needs a second coat base coat for sure. Tabletop Minions, yeah. Yeah, David's on there too, on that 6 questions for pro painters, and so is Kathy Wapple, and I think James is, and yeah. James is the one who told us to go down and answer his questions, actually, so it's due to the Wapple. I think, was it James or was it Aaron? It was somebody. I don't remember. Somebody told us to do it, and we did it. There were too many good painters there, and all of them have run together now in my brain. There's just this giant amalgamation of like Lovejoy, Wapple. Yeah, right there. That's stuff of nightmares. So I'll stop. Yeah. Al-Raham. Yes. Oh man, that's old school. That's way back from my man. So Katie and I have worked for Reaper for 19 years as of April 1st. And I worked for GW before that. So it's been a long time. A long time since I've owned that model. But yeah, those are really cool. Some of the leader models for the specific Imperial Guard were factions were really, or chapters, I guess, were really, really cool. Oh, alrighty. So let's get the skin tone on the hands. Now, as you can see right now, the skin tone is looking a lot like our cream, so we will be working with that. It's not a bad thing that the skin tone is kind of reflecting that cream, and you kind of get into that whenever you use white on a fair-skinned model. Like, they kind of end up, if you're doing a warm white, they kind of end up feeling the same. The way to get around that is to do a cooler white, but obviously on this model, I really did want to do warmer colors, so I'm ignoring the best practices, and I'm just going to make it work by adding in a lot of contrast. It will be evident eventually that these are different colors, but right now they look very similar. But it's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, when you do white, you are always fighting to get attention to the face, because the white is then the lightest, brightest thing on the model. Unlike if you have almost any other color scheme usually, and you're doing a fair skin tone, usually the skin tone is the lightest. We're going to counter this by using red hair. And this is going to immediately pop attention to the head and face, even above and beyond the white, because we've softened the white down. And even though it's the lightest thing on the model, the hair will become the brightest, one of the brightest things. Yeah. Yes, I used to be, $7 per kilo, I think, $8 per kilo if you just went and raided the metal room as an employee. And It was ridiculous. You could get a Bloodthirster for $8. It was and a full metal Bloodthirster. So it was pretty ridiculous. Oh, I see a mold line. I'm gonna stop and clean that off. Yeah, you were one, huh? You have that background, or you had friends with that background? Yeah. Was it discounts were not nearly as good when I went out and moved back to the Midwest and then worked in the retail arm out there in Schaumburg. And then from there, I got invited to Reaper's first artist conference because one of my friends, famous mini painter, Slayer Sword winner, Jennifer Haley, got invited down, and they asked her, "Oh, do you have any friends who we should invite down?" And she's like, "Anne." And I emerged from that weekend with a job offer at Reaper, so I left GW. I pretty much gave my notice the next week. You had friends. I see. Working at GW in UK. Yeah, they bought many. Yep. Yeah, because you could. Like, really at that point, and we always joke about this, and whenever you work at a store that's involved with a hobby you love, but it was really, your paycheck isn't a paycheck at that point. It's just a coupon for product. Some of the mold lines on this model were very sneaky and avoided my eyes until this moment. Yeah. Yeah, I kind of want to start playing some Warhammer again. It'd be kind of cool to either start playing 40K again or actually finally learn Age of Sigmar, since I really do love the fantasy side of things. I do like miniatures games, and they usually motivate me to paint. I just, I never have time for them these days. Doing so many other things. Okay. But yes, and the next competitions, I am gonna enter Golden Demon this year. I've hard committed to it, like next year. But the next competitions coming up in the community are going to be KublaCon, which is out here in the Bay Area. And I'm judging that, but I'm still allowed to enter. So I'm going to enter something small. And then ReaperCon at the end of the summer, of course, is the ReaperCon Master Series Open. So I know many of you in the chat are planning to come. Please enter a model. Please do try hard. That's my request of you. Oh, wow. Empire 28 years ago. Yep. Empire armies, though, if you put a good, like, solid, like, there was a guy I knew who played in our fantasy group who had a black and red with gold color scheme, and boy, that army just looks sharp. Just freaking sharp on the tabletop. Yeah, well, they said they were going to reboot Old Hammer. I mean, yeah, much as you can trust anything, that's said, but that's what I heard this rumor. Age of Sigmar is supposed to be better for tournament play. Like, I have heard friends say that it is more balanced, because certainly the old version was not more balanced, but it was super fun. Kind of like when War Machine first came out. It's like nobody on Earth could claim that game was balanced, but it was super fun because it was broken in all different ways. Hello to our people who just popped in. Who popped in? Oh, Agent Marvel popped in. I thought I saw somebody else too. Oh, are you? Bob and Julie? Woo! Sculptors turning to the paint side. Yeah. When you guys enter, it always makes me happy, Bob and Julie, because you actually are decent painters too. I know you'll probably go pshaw about that, but you are. And I think everybody loves to see your stuff because you always have cool concepts. Yeah, I love it when our sculptors also enter the painting competition. I don't know what I'm gonna paint. I've got a couple things I want to paint. Okay, I've got some projects, guys. Projects with a capital P. And one is a bust, and one is a 75 millimeter, and one is a giant confrontation wolfen from the guys who just proceeded to put out all of the confrontation stuff. And one is a little tiny creature caster demon. Tiny. And I mean it. She's the 28 millimeter scale. So I've got lots of things to work on. I just need to figure out what I'm going to finish for what. And on that note, for those who like to tune into my Saturday stream, we got invited to a birthday party for David's best friend since childhood. So we're going to be going there during the normal time of my stream. But I think what I'm going to do on Saturday is I am going to stream at this usual time or close to it. I'll probably start at 10 and go to 11:30. Or I'll start at 9:30 and go to 11. My time. So for you guys, that would be assume the usual stream time. So on Saturday, our usual pro tips stream time, and it'll be twitch.tv/paintingbig. And I'll be working on something for competition. I haven't decided which one of the models I'm going to be working on. I may be doing some sculpting, converting on that stream, because the Wolfen is getting a major face resculpt. And so if you are interested in that, essentially using the model as an armature for itself, you can tune in. I may also work in some painting. Although my little creature caster demon is topless, so I will have to put a little blue stuff bikini, a sticky tack bikini on her if I'm going to paint her. Yeah, Bob's sense of humor does come out in his dioramas. You are right. That's funny. So yeah, lots of competitions coming up, and I just have to figure out what I want to do. And whether... I keep thinking about Monte San Savino, which is in Tuscany, Italy, and is has made a name for itself over the past several years as really the show to go to as far as annual shows worldwide, ever since Crystal Brush kind of tanked. So I keep thinking about that. It's in November, though, and we might have a new puppy. If we have a new puppy, it's right out. It's a no. But if we don't get a new puppy... Oh. Oh, yeah. Hi, Mike. Mike, the shiny Mew. Small World Sophie. Cool. But yeah, so for those who want to tune into my regular stream on Saturday on my Painting Big Twitch, which I do appreciate all of you, it's super great when we can get a nice group over there painting along and chatting. That's kind of why I started up the Saturday stream. I'm going to grab some Rogue Shadow to do lining around the skin. I always line around the skin before I do the highlighting. It kind of gives me a dark frame of reference so that I can see, if I do this right now with no lining, it's going to be hard to judge how light my highlights actually are. It helps to have a dark color next to the skin to also assess relative brightness or darkness. So I do that with lining, and just that little line around the skin will enable me to have a better idea of how light or dark the skin is getting. Oh, you work weekends. I'm so sorry, Slowpoke. I worked many weekends. When I was at Reaper, I worked every Saturday doing Paint Club, and so now I would do Twitch every Saturday doing Paint Club. So yeah, so I feel it. I'm gonna go here. So I'm gonna just get some of this Rogue Liner. Rogue Shadow is, I call it Rogue Liner. It should be Rogue Liner, but it's Rogue Shadow, and it is a liner color, which means it is more of a fluid base, and it is made for lining. Fluid base and more flow improver added are the hallmarks of the liner colors. And so when you're doing those super thin lines, as we were demonstrating yesterday when we were doing those dark lines around different areas of the model, this just makes it a little bit easier. You can also line with a regular paint. I use Walnut all the time if I want a very dark and solid line, because Walnut has better coverage and it'll give you that more cartoony line. But if you want a little less cartoony, a little more natural, using the liners just slightly thinned, I'm going to mix this up 2-to-1, and I'm going to add another paint drop to it. It's about my happy spot, I think. Although, so this is worth talking about. With fairer skin tones. You don't always want to use the darkest liner. Sometimes you want to add more of an intermediate brown in there to lighten it up. So if he was going to be blonde and I was going to be bringing up this skin really light, then I think I would actually add a little bit of Shield Brown, which is another color that we've been using for the gold base coat here, the undercoat for the NMM Gold. I would probably add this into that and make it a little bit lighter. You don't want it really light, but using black or near black lining on really fair skin tones and pale hair tends to look a little odd. So if you lighten up or thin up your lining a bit more, it'll look better for really fair-skinned and blonde-haired or white-haired individuals. Yeah, VODs. VODs, it's all about VODs. I need to figure out what I want to do for my new YouTube video this month. At first I was thinking to address like shadows, to start addressing shadows and highlight and just like placement. But then I was thinking maybe I want to do my first color theory video because I do want to work color theory into those. So I don't know. I'm going back and forth. So I'm going to line around the hair, right around between the hair and the face. It's going to bring out the features better. It's going to help, like I obviously had bleed over here where the face color got onto the hair. So right away with a dark line, I can correct that. Especially before the hair is painted. Gives me an easy way. I can mess up on the side of the hair while trimming up the line of the face. All the places you can... Oh, wow. Look at that. Quindy. Look at it's Anne. It's all over Anne. Dang. Sweet. That is one heck of a link, Quindy. That is like the social media Anne bomb link. Yep. All of that. Woohoo. Super. Well, now I feel like I need to put more stuff on my website. Which I did think about doing. I have a couple of, on my blog on there, I've got a couple of just kind of work in progress things. Work in progress shots of painting the Big Soldier 76 statue and work in progress of painting in my Lehman Russ that I did for commission. That was Lehman is a nice model. If you like Space Wolves, which I do. I like Space Wolves and I cannot lie. But yeah, so there is some stuff on there. It's older. I've been thinking about doing a new blog on one of my upcoming projects. So the website also has a gallery of my work, as does the Instagram. On the Instagram, the gallery is mostly work in progress, whereas on my website, a lot of the stuff is finished. So kind of just ended up that way. Because when I'm trying to, I don't finish a mini every week, and I was trying to Instagram once a week, so that meant sharing a lot of whips. That's a strand of hair, so I'm going to correct that back there. Just going to drop a big shadow back at the bottom there, because it's going into that hood shadow there. So can be a little bit just more blocky with your shadows when the hair is actually in like the shadow of a hood or something. A little bit of a line here just to separate these things. And a lot of this line is going to get painted over with the hair color. But my initial start on the hair color may be darker. I may go lighter. I haven't decided. I want it to be fiery red, almost unnatural red. Less copy paste for you. Yes. Funny. So yeah, so that wonderful huge link that Quindy dropped. If you want updates on my work in progresses of my personal projects and some stuff from the stream, Instagram is the way to go. And sometimes I do put finished projects up there, especially from the stream. And then, of course, my YouTube channel, I'm doing a series of short videos on the fundamentals of mini painting right now. So if you want a refresher, or you have friends who are just getting into the hobby, or you are just getting into the hobby, that I would recommend those. They're proving quite popular. I'm really happy. And I am trying to get to 1,000 YouTube subscribers. So, like, I love everybody on here who has gone over and supported me there. I'm very excited because my YouTube is growing just with organic reach now, and I'm just excited as anything. So I think that the little videos, the short little videos are having some success. All right, so once we've got, notice how that brings the face out, right? So right away you've defined the face. You've defined where the face is as opposed to the hair. We've got kind of an odd little gap here. He's got very sharp cheekbones. Yeah, there we go. So I'll probably add in more of a skin shadow, and this blob right here will be more of an organic shadow as we move on. But right now it looks like that's a strand of hair, so I'm going to keep that there. The other thing I do at this stage is I do block in the eyes. And I do block in the line of the mouth. And the one thing I see that beginning mini painters really not doing is doing that line of the mouth there. Just kind of lining it. Because it takes brush control, right? But anything you anything you try, you can always touch up. So it's a good opportunity to get that line kind of in. And it does an awful lot to bring out his expression to get the line of the mouth dark. Otherwise, mouths tend to look like a blob of slightly pinkier material, or they just totally disappear. But if you even just line the mouth on a 28mm, that helps a lot. And then the eyes on this one are pretty small and slanty. He's narrowing them because he's about to throw a spell at something. So again, I'm going to use the liner to fill in the whole thing. No, Tale of Stumpy. Stump of Rax, I think is her correct name. I've kind of given up on Stumpy, but I am going to start painting Stumpy's base once we're done with this elf. So we will start on the dragon. We'll just have to start on the base and hope other parts actually come to me at some point. Oh, we went a little low there. That's not quite. So if you blorf or mess up like I just did. No, actually with Bones I don't, Cadian. So this is a Bones model. It's a Bones black. And with these, honestly, Bones can be painted pretty much without primer. So I do, because why not? It was kind of one of our selling points back at the beginning for Reaper, to have, essentially you can see the base Bones material in the gray. But to realize, when we realized we could just take these out of the package and just paint them and not need primer. And the plastic would accept the paint. So what I do to make sure the plastic accepts the paint a little better is I wash them in hot water with just like a splash of dish soap, just hot soapy water, rinse thoroughly, let dry overnight, and then I can paint pretty thin paint on here, and it takes to the surface. If you're going to game a lot with figures, then you probably do. I mean, you could prime your Bones in that case just to give it that extra level of stick-to-itiveness. And I would definitely seal at that point. But be careful because the Bones material is, at least Bones Black and original Bones are PVC. And so they do react to some primers. So definitely ask on the Facebook. Make sure that people give you their recommends for primers that work. Otherwise, it can essentially prime and stay tacky and never quite cure. So those are the kind of the avoid this and do that kind of thing. So because of that caveat with not all primers working with Bones, that's why I tend to just not do it. I prime my metal and I prime my resin. So like we're working on Kitty Cat. Kitty Cat, this is part of our regular stream. This one we're working on a Bone 6 model because the Kickstarter is running right now. So Bone 6 Kickstarter is now up on Kickstarter. But we have metal models regularly in our rotation too, and so this guy is obviously metal. I do the white primer, and I do paint in sections. You do see me doing that. But you guys and your Stumpy. But yeah, so I do do a primer base on these guys. I kind of like that I can just paint on Bones though. One less step. Yeah, it's just the Bones material, Cadian, that this particular PVC mix like will accept paint and it'll bond really well to them. So yeah, since I don't have to prime, I just choose not to. So his eyeball got blorfed there, so we're going to fix it. I'm mixing up some white because when I'm using a really dark color, if I'm going to put a light color like this skin tone over the top, the way to do that is really to put a little white over the dark color first, and then to put your regular color over the top. Just spray. Yeah, sorry. Just with spray. Brush-on tends to work fine. Although I can't vouch for different brush-ons, but so far it seems like brush-ons work fine. Hello, POTUS. Yeah, I'm pretty much going to push and finish this Kickstarter model, POTUS, and then we're going to work on the dragon's base. And actually I wanted to show you guys that dragon's base because it's actually really cool. So let me fix this eyeball, and then we'll go grab the base for that dragon. So he's got very narrowed eyes, so put down the white. And the white helps reshape that, and then you can put the skin tone over the top. And that pretty much covers up our mistake. I may need to put another coat on just because I see a little bit of the white remaining at the top. There. So yeah, he's got very narrow eyes, so it'll be a challenge. They're long though, so we should be able to do a pupil in them. Sometimes if eyes are too tiny, that just gets impossible. Yeah, that's more the Army Painter primer with the chalkiness. I'm not a fan. I don't like the texture, but that's good to know that they work on there though, Mike. Yeah, I'm about to, actually it's interesting you bring up oils, Katie, and I'm about to play, I think I'm going to jump into some oils later this year. Hold on, little mini. Okay, so Dragon Base. Dragon Base is pretty cool. And we can do lots of groundwork on it. So, Dragon Base is cool, and you can see there's a giant head. Rar, giant head. So, lots of tumbled stones. Some really good stone texture on these rocks, actually. I need to clean up some of the 3D print lines. I really like these flagstones. I think it'll be fun to paint these awesome flagstones. And then all these little holes in here are great places to like lump in some like sand and gravel and groundworks, like texture paints essentially. Mound it up and fill it with like earth and then grass and long grass and leaves and stuff like that. So we can do a lot of, even though most of this ground is stone because it's obviously like a tumbled tower or a tumbled temple or some sort, then we can get in here and show some vegetation growing over the top of this after we have a base paint on it. So that's kind of what my plan is for the dragon's base. Since that's at least a complete part and I don't have legs yet. Yeah. Yep, Pendrake is absolutely correct there. I went splat. Every rattle can is different. Most companies use different manufacturers, and so you're going to get a lot of variance. Yeah, I'm not a fan of like actual real. I find the problem, okay, and I ran into this because I used to bonsai. But the problem is just that the scale of real plant parts can be problematic, except for roots being used as like tree limbs. Then you can get away with that pretty well. That's good to know, though, that they have an acrylic thing to use with real plant parts, because I do pick up roots and chunks of bark every once in a while. And I always wonder what to treat them with. But yeah, so I do like, there are a couple of brands that make different like paper foliage that I like those. So we'll have to figure out what kind of environment the dragon is in. And I was thinking Stumpy, I was going to paint Stumpy kind of a green and blue, like kind of transition. I have an idea that I want to try essentially. And Stumpy is going to be the, no. Yeah, I didn't have, no. I would not do a giant chibi dragon. That one I'm not interested at all. If Ron had asked me, he asked me if I wanted to paint a dragon on stream, and I'm like, all right, I could do dragon parts anyway. And if he would have said chibi dragon, I'm afraid that doesn't float my boat. I know how you are, Kerniko. You and Chibi Amy. Like, if it's a chibi and a chibi dragon in particular, you guys are like, wee! But no, this is a base for a different dragon. I have not seen this dragon pop up in the Kickstarter. I assume that they have showed it on Reaper Live, since they seem to be very much about, they have shown a lot of stuff on Reaper Live. All right, so I'm going to trim in the ear here, and then we'll start highlighting and seeing what kind of highlights I can get on this. I do want to add in a little bit of ruddiness to this skin. We've done undead dragons before. We have Reaper has a skeletal dragon, they've got a couple of zombie dragons, Nethermaul, and then the little zombie dragon that Julie did, which I think is really a nice zombie dragon. It's a good smaller zombie dragon if you don't want to use a giganto zombie dragon. I haven't painted that one on stream. I should get that one. I like zombie dragons. Question about the mascot Sophie. Her canon colors are actually, I would say, tan skin to rosy skin. Like I do mixes and I have painted many Sophies in my tenure as Reaper staff painter. So usually I would do a 50-50 mix of tan and rosy skin, and I would highlight it with linen white. And then with her armor colors tend to be red with gold, and probably these days I'd use Asmodeus red and highlight it up with like a clear red. And then her hair is auburn, and her wings I usually actually use a combo. I would say dark brown, any dark brown would work, but shield brown and russet, like shield brown and then the russet for the shadows and blackened brown for the really dark shadows. And then using colors like usually actually driftwood brown, the highlight in this triad, to highlight the wings. That is the canon, but you are welcome to paint your Sophie any way you want. Okay, I think that's where I am. Okay, mixing a highlight. And doing a little bit of red. I'm using violet red actually to mix into the hair colors. We'll get to that, but I'm going to actually mix up a little bit of a kind of a reddish skin color. I'm using a tiny schmear, just a little tiny schmear of violet red. That's 9026. I'm going to grab my mixing brush and throw some of this tan skin over there. You can see how dark the tan skin actually does dry. So I always make my reddish tones for skin by mixing the actual base skin tone into a bit of red of various sorts. Whichever red I choose, remember if you use a bright red like fire or clear or brilliant, you will get much more of a cotton candy pink. Whereas if you use a darker red such as dragon or violet or Asmodeus, you will get, or deep red actually, 9002 deep red is one of my favorites. You will get a much more organic, rosy color that's not quite as girly. So pretty much bright red plus skin tone equals more girly. Darker red plus skin tone equals more mature, less girly. Or a guy skin tone. Uh-oh, my brush is shedding. There we go. Had to get a hair off of it. So I am going to put a little bit of reddish color here. I may need a little tiny bit more for the lips because guys do have a little bit of reddish color in their lips. You have to be careful with it because you want to suggest the color, but you obviously don't want to go whole hog because you don't want them to have lipstick. Although you are welcome to give your guys lipstick if you want. And this is an elf, so technically, well, we could go either way. But I mostly want just a hint. And my base might be a little more red, and then I'm going to add in the skin tone as a highlight here. And that's going to block out that red. It's going to knock it right out. So leave just a little bit of that red. And that'll leave us just a little hint. And that does not look like lipstick, so we are good. And again, when you're working at very small areas like this on a 28mm face, you might have to make your red a little more intense than you think for it to show up. Hey, Max Styles and Twisted Oma. How's it going? So smaller areas need brighter colors for those colors to actually like carry. But you don't want to go too far or your model's going to look like it's out in the cold or wearing blush. So sometimes you have to put a little bit of your main skin tone glaze over there. Because you want those red tones, like most fair people will, you know, have a little bit of redness at various places around the nose and the cheeks and the mouth. Like there's a lot of rosy tones through the middle of the face. Even on guys. So I like to add those in. Add a little bit more water to my tan skin here and get it, make sure it stays good. So we're about 45 minutes in a stream, and it's going to be a hot day today here in California, so it's quite warm already, meaning my paint wants to dry a little faster. So usually that in colder weather I can go like an hour, hour and 15 without having to add water to my paint in my well palette, but when it starts getting really warm out, then I have to do it every 45 minutes or so. And that shadow still looking a little bit too red. There we are, much better, much better. Perfect. Real men wear lipstick. He is confident in his masculinity. How about that? Or maybe he likes lipstick. You could go either way. I will not judge you either way. All right, let's do tan skin plus an off-white to make some of these skin tones rise up. I'm going to start with just a little bit of white. If I'm using pure white, I'm going to go 4-to-1 for sure. So 4 drops of tan skin, 1 drop of pure white. And the reason for that is pure white has a lot of pigment in it. It is going to really overpower this tan skin. In the old days, I used a lot of linen white for skin highlights, but these days I just like to go pure white. If I want that little extra kind of golden shift, I'll use a tiny bit of yellow. But I like the amount of pigment that pure white brings to the table, so this actually may need a little bit more. You can see that it's lighter, but it's not quite as light as I'd like it. It depends. Okay, so if you're going to leave your paint thicker, then you could go with this color as a highlight. Because the thicker your paint is, the closer you can, if you have thick paint, you can keep your colors close to your base coat and still get smooth blends. But if you want to really thin your paint, this isn't going to show up as a highlight. So I tend to like to do very thin paint. So I'm going to add another drop of white and bring that up a bit more. And then I'm going to thin it way down. So if you keep your colors closer together, you can get away with thicker paint for highlighting and still get pretty smooth transitions. Woohoo. So that is noticeably lighter. That's more what I want. And it's quite watery. Probably a 1-to-1 or so. Yeah, it's supposed to hit 90 today, and then it's supposed to go downhill. Get cold. Well, not cold, but get in the 60s again for here. I just like my warm weather. Alrighty. So a little bit here. There's usually kind of a ridge over this corner of the skull. Over the brow, there's a ridge of bone that goes up into the skull. So this usually protrudes right above the eye here. You definitely want to highlight that. You usually would highlight the whole forehead, but obviously his forehead is under his hair, so not so much. Just a little bit then of highlighting, just to bring the brows out. Since on most people, the brow does like jut out a little bit right above the eyebrows. So like this ridge of bone right before your skull dips down into your eye sockets. Yeah, 90. I love 90. Rondulus. The SS Minnow. I will not sing it on stream. I must paint. It is my task to paint. I did complain bitterly though. So you have that part right. So we want the upper part of the cheekbone highlighted. And usually that highlight will kind of travel down and hit that upper lip, because the front of the face is flat on humans. So you will see the light kind of go down from where the cheekbone comes down here. If you leave a big shadow between your cheekbone and your upper lip, it'll look like the model is grimacing or otherwise pulling its mouth back, since that's normally where that crease would develop. So if you have a younger person or a smoother skinned person, you want to make sure that your highlight line drops down here. Don't want to lose your midtone though, so kind of keep an eye on it. And if you need to bring some midtone back in, feel free to do that with wet blending or glazing. You can see how those little highlights do start to bring out the face though. Oh yeah, sorry Adam. I thin just with water. On occasion, I will use a mix that has a little bit of flow improver in it. It's essentially Reaper flow improver, like the 106 version. So on occasion, I will do that instead if I'm doing fine details or I'm really trying to hit tiny things. A little extra flow improver never hurts. But otherwise, MSP has flow improver actually added to the formulations. All the Reaper paint does. So you don't have to. I thin with water most times. It's a very rare, like it's almost unknown that I use anything other than water. That was kind of my point when I was formulating this paint, is I really wanted to just be able to add water. I had been using every form of additive known to man to get previous paint lines to behave the way I wanted to as a painter. And I really wanted a paint line I didn't have to do that with. And so when I got put in charge of making Master Series, of creating Master Series, I decided that was one of my criteria, that I really wanted a paint that if we could add flow improver to it so that people wouldn't need to do anything other than add water. Unless, of course, you live in a dry climate and maybe you want to experiment with drying retarder or stuff like that. That I did not pre-add to the paint. I felt it didn't need it in most climates, and I also was concerned about the adhesion impact. So I did not go in that direction, but all of the flow improver does not hurt the paint. So adding that to the formulation up front worked out really well. And it means that you can just move with it. You can just go. Most people, when they're airbrushing even, they will just add water, or they'll add a 90% water, 10% isopropyl alcohol mixture and go that way. But you really don't need any extra additives. The paint works great, just thinned. Yep, you are absolutely cool, Adam. You are working as intended. Sweet. All right, I want to give this chin a little bit more solid, and then I'm going to put highlight on it. Now I do want to leave a little space right under the mouth before I put this highlight. Because you always have that shadow underneath the lower lip. You can see it on camera right now. If you look, you can see a little shadow right here. And on 28mm faces, that's really hard to put in. And this guy's face is not, he's sculpted very straight. His face is very straight. He doesn't have a lot of variation. The sculpt is very simple on him. And so he doesn't have a lot of like room for you to do that. But some models you'll find it's easier and some not as easy. When you start doing busts or even like 54 or 75mm models, or even larger like giants, you'll be able to put that shadow in right under the mouth, and it'll make the face look more realistic and better. Oh, the Gilligan Island theme song. Sadly, Ron is missing out on all this taunting because he's like buried under Bone 6. Yeah, Gilligan's Island is an overwhelmingly silly show. Agreed. I made the ear got a little bit too much on the hair here. So I've got a first layer of highlight, I've got rosy tones, and I've got my base here. I'm going to put the highlight on the hands. He isn't buried. Ron is lurking, hearing the tale of Stumpy the Dragon. Or you have delivered it to him. Delivered it unto him. I thought Ron was in charge of writing the Kickstarter. And if Ron is in charge of writing the Kickstarter, then usually that person gets completely buried and loses their life for a month. It's kind of like a curse. So I do start out with lines here because there are bones and tendons on the back of the hand. But, okay. We taunted him a lot. Okay. Because you guys want to see your dragon. So starting here, then I will take my base coat and I'm actually going to lose some of these lines headed back by painting that over the top. Because I do want the back of the hand. At this scale, you wouldn't see those tendons and bones necessarily standing out unless it was a very emaciated person. So I will take my base coat and kind of blend these in. But I do want them to kind of still stand out close to the knuckles. So I'm going to work on this for a bit. And just take those back in. Add in a little bit more to the top of the hand. Now they faded in a bit, but you still get the suggestion. That's nice. Knuckles can be pinkish, so especially in older people, you can add it, or an outdoor type. You can add kind of a pinkish color on the knuckles. And again, this will make it look more realistic, more like real skin tones. Now, we are going to highlight these fingers, but these are buried underneath, so we're going to leave these as the base coat, really. The other thing we're going to do here is line between the fingers, just like we lined between the lips, like the line of the mouth. Fingers definitely need lining. A lot of, again, beginning painters don't do this step, and so their hands just kind of look like globs. Hey, boat crafting is far different than coconut radios. Yeah, that's true, Miss Dimp. There we go. Kind of like horses. That's what my mom always said about horses. They were hay burners. So I'm going to line here. Just to get these fingers looking like they're different. And again, this is complete exaggeration, right? We're exaggerating how dark the lines are between the fingers because normally the fingers, you can see that there's a line between them, but it's not terribly dark, although you can see it quite well on the upper finger here in the camera, on face cam. But because it's 28 millimeter, we do have to accentuate everything. So we overdo our shadows, we overdo our highlights to bring out details. And this is just what 28 millimeter tends to take. When you get bigger models, they cast their own shadows very realistically and pick up highlights. You can go more subtle with your details. And you don't have to overdo it anymore. And if you do overdo it, you tend to look very cartoony on a bigger scale model. That's looking okay. Now this hand. Now we don't know if the spell effect here is going to be emitting light. It probably is, but I'm going to put a line between it and the hand anyway. I can always kind of fade that out over time. I do see that that mold line did not disappear, so I need to take a knife to this again. So I'm going to just kind of get this in here. I think Gilligan's Island like started my... I tend to not like shows that have really dumb characters on them. So that's a lot of shows these days. A lot of sitcoms, and as I sit here with my knife and try to carefully take off a mold line without destroying everything around it. Yeah, I tend to run out of patience with really stupid characters. I don't think they're funny. It does not appeal to my sense of humor. At least not overtly stupid characters. All right, that's a little better. Now I just need to knock these plastic bits off of here. And I should be able to resume without annoying mold line. Yeah, I think so too. Missed him. I think they regrow. They're like, it's like they have roots, and you like pull out the top, and then the roots regrow. And of course, my tan skin has gotten very thin because I thinned it down to use with skin tones. So I need some original mix here. So I'm going to put a little blob of it out here. There, much better. This elf has very big hands for his size. Yeah. Yeah. Me too, Adam. Like, I was okay with... I wouldn't say I ever loved them, but I was okay with them. And it really depends on how much, like, kind of sophisticated humor is in there with the slapstick and the overtly dumb humor. Because I like clever humor. So even if dumb characters are present, if there is clever humor, I will be okay. It's just the dumb characters being dumb, then that's expected to be funny. That's the kind of that I don't like. Don't enjoy personally. Other people do. The great Three Stooges divide. Except I liked the Stooges. To a point. I mean, at least I watched them when I was a kid. I can't watch them now. But to each their own. Just because I don't like it doesn't mean it's not good. It's just different style. Like physical comedy has its own set of masters, right? So... there we go. So shading again. And again, once we decide whether this will glow or not, I'll be changing this, but I want to define the hand first so I can get things set with the hand. Then I can worry about the spell effect. Spell effect will probably be one of the last things I do because it's going to be an accent color. So... sepia screen mode. Oh no. Oh no, Korniko. So when you've got a sleeve like this, this open thing, you can do a couple things with it. Let's actually work on this a little bit just for a second. Then I'm going to put a base coat on the hair. But since I'm sitting here working with liner. So the cuff of this is going to be gold. And you could argue you don't want to go cream with the inside because it's all in shadow. And like if a sleeve like this was hanging up, you'd maybe see a little color on the inside and then it would just go dark. So I'm going to use my Shield Brown, which is my cuff color. And narrow sleeves are a little easier on this. Like Darius here, like long narrow sleeves, it's pretty evident that it would get shadowy pretty quick. Plus he's a wizard. Who knows what he has up his sleeve? Probably yesterday's lunch if he's like as inept as his rat familiar seems to think. Oh. So since I forgot to do the NMM Gold setup for this sleeve, I can do this now. This is just a squirrel week as I get back into my routine. Totally squirreling. I see, I got the front, but I didn't do the back. Typical. All right, so I'm gonna take some of this and I'm gonna bring this color into this inside area. And then I am going to blend it in with my shadow color. So it kind of gives it the appearance of fading back. That's our goal. So if you can do that blend, it'll give you that appearance of it being three-dimensional, like so. So you can kind of see that you're losing sight of the gold color as it goes back in. And then, though we don't have the right colors for this yet, but if you highlight specifically the lower part here, like you can create that illusion that it is a three-dimensional surface instead of just a flat painted surface. Yeah, this is true. The Stooges, you could actually hurt people. So yeah, if you can just get a little bit of highlight in there, you can create the illusion of it being a three-dimensional surface. Yay, illusions. Paint illusions are fun. All right, I am going to actually I'm going to block in this gold part that I missed yesterday, and then we're going to go and block in the hair. We're going to kind of put the face on hold, and we're going to start blocking in our hair colors so we can work on both, make sure they look good together. Again, we're using Shield Brown as our base for NMM Gold today. Instead of, I often use Rich Leather 9429, but Shield also works fine, so does Uniform Brown 9127, or actually NMM Gold Shadow 9301. All of these things are very, they're similar. They're, some of them are a little warmer, some of them are a little yellower, some of them are a little darker or greener. Some are more muted, some are more bright, but yeah, they all are in that ballpark that I look for as far as a starting color for NMM Gold, non-metallic metal gold. We're just blocking in this. I'm going to hold off on assigning a color to this. I may want to add an accent color on part of this. Like if we do decide that the red orange is an accent color that we're going to like be working with the hair, then I will work it into that hem in between here to carry a little bit of it down the body. Because we have a little bit of a geometric pattern here that we can work with. We could also decide to freehand something if we wanted to. if you decide you really need some accent color down lower on the model and you don't have something sculpted that would help you do it. Alrighty, let's get this hair color mixed up. I'm going to go in the second row here. And we have to make a choice here on what color our hair is going to be. So, actually, let's just talk colors. I had Numeria Rust and not. Okay. So, Carrot Top Red is usually the middle color for this triad. I had grabbed Numeria Rust instead because I was doing something I wanted a more rusty red. They're very comparable. But this one's a little bit more orange, so keep that in mind. What I want to do with him, though, is to actually add some red to this and go a little bit more unnaturally red since he's an elf and a sorcerer. I figure it's not outside of the realm of possibility, and I kind of wanted to go a little more unnatural with him in general. So the one choice we do need to do, though, is we need to decide if we're starting with our shadow or starting with our midtone. And if we start with our shadow, the hair is going to look a lot darker. It's going to look auburn, even if we use the same set of colors for highlighting. Whereas if we start with Numeria Rust or Carrot Top Red, it's going to look more like a Carrot Top Red hair color. It's not going to look auburn, even if you shade it with auburn. So the starting color here really matters as far as whether you're going for auburn hair like Sophie or whether you're going for more of a Carrot Top Red. And I think I'm going to start more of a Carrot Top Red. So I'm going to use Numeria Rust, because I don't know where I've put my Carrot Top Red. And I'm going to start with like 3 drops of that. Oh, I need to shake it up better, though. It's definitely telling me I did not shake it up very well. And I'm going to grab my Kleenex and clean that little watery drop out. When you can do this a little easier on a well palette than a wet palette, but you can still do it on a wet palette. If you drop a drop of paint down onto the palette and has a lot of watery binder in it, you didn't shake your paint quite enough, maybe it's been sitting around for a long time, you can just take a paper towel or a Kleenex or whatever and wipe it off your palette, shake it up, and go for it again. You want to start with a good solid base, and if you've got too much of that binder in there, it kind of gives you a goopy texture that doesn't cover very well. There we go. 1, 2, 3. And then I think I'm going to actually use violet red. I'm going to see what that makes. Even though it's a darker red, I'm curious. So as a hair color, who knows what this is going to give us? But I really am curious, so I decided I was going to try it. Let me get the big base here so you guys can see the actual color. Oh, that's kind of nice, actually. Yeah, that's a nice color. I think I'm good with that, actually. I'm going to put it on there and see. It's quite bright, but it is very reddish. So yeah, we're gonna try that. We're gonna see how it goes. And when I shade it with the auburn, it'll probably fall into line, so we'll see. It's a very bright red. I may put a glaze of auburn over it if I decide it's just way unnatural. Very red. But it is kind of the way I imagined him, with really, really red hair, so let's go for it. So this is a darker color than we used when we were... The other place we used this type of color was on our Tabby Cat, if you'll recall. I wanted Numeria Rust because I felt that it was a closer color to the Tabby color I was looking at. More of a brownish red. But here, I want to go really bright. Hello, GVD. Wow, 23 months. Hey, you can be super late. Yeah, it is super bright, but I think I can work it, Adam. Because remember that this won't be, one, it's going to dry a little darker. And two, once I shade and highlight it, it's not going to be just this color, right? Always remember your stuff, it can change a lot with your choices of shadows and highlights. Haha. It's a little bit darker and redder, I think, than Safety Orange. But yeah, he's like unnatural, so he's a wizard and an elf. So why not? Nobody says they didn't do dye jobs in Fantasy World. Or maybe he's just always been the ginger. Maybe that's why he became a wizard, because he got teased a lot by all the other elf kids for his hair color. And he just decided he was done with it and he was going to fireball the next person who walked up to him to make fun of his hair color. That's a worthy goal. Could drive me to become a wizard. Or at the very least, magic missile him, since he's currently a low-level wizard, which means that his life expectancy is probably 2 encounters. All right, so as it dries, it gets a little more dull. I'm okay with this color. I'm going to play with it. Yeah, pretty rare, I think, to have it be this vibrant. All right, I'm going to take my Auburn Shadow and see if that's dark enough. Sometimes you'd be surprised how dark a color needs to be really be an effective shadow for something. So I'm going to start, and remember we're going like saturated shadows on this guy anyway, because I'm using like ultramarine shadow to shade the blue and stuff like that. I may put some purple in this Auburn Shadow and show you guys what that looks like. I am going to, I think, put another layer of red on this hair, however. Yep, prestidigitation. It's almost dry. It needs to dry a little faster. This is a really vibrant orange, though. Almost volcanic orange, but darker. But as it dries, you notice it mellows out a little bit, right? So... And now this is going to notice how pale it makes his face look right now. So depending on how much we bring the highlights up is whether it's going to emphasize the paleness of the face. If we go lighter with the hair, like if we really bring highlights up on it, it'll be less dramatic difference. If we went darker with the hair, it would be a more dramatic difference. But it also wouldn't necessarily pull the eye as much. And we do want it to pull the eye, because remember, we're fighting this white. And we still want people to look at the face of the figure. Do a little touch up. So I thinned the color a little bit more for the second coat, and I am putting it on thinner instead of thicker, which will make it dry faster. Thinner coats of paint dry faster than thicker, even if they have more water in them, which is counterintuitive to some people. But yeah, right now, this is looking, one of the reasons this is looking bright is that it's a complementary color to the blue, because orange is complementary to blue. In fact, it's even a greeny blue, and this is a reddish orange, so it is actually a true complement. Right across the color wheel. So what happens when you've got complementary colors on a figure is that each color makes the other one look brighter. So the presence of orange here is going to make the blue look brighter, and the presence of the blue is going to make the orange look brighter. Yes, could do a fire mage. If you were basing your hair color on your personality, which is something that I often do. In fact, if I've got no other leads on how to paint a character, I will usually start with hair color. All right, so now we're going to take this auburn shadow, and right away I'm thinking it's not quite dark enough for real shadows on this hair. So it's darker, but it's not like super dark. So I don't think it's going to be enough to really bring out details like a much darker shadow would. So I can add some purple. I could add some of this rogue shadow, actually, which does have red pigment in it. And that might not be a bad idea. It also brings in the same shadow I'm using on my cloth. Let's do that. Mix in just a little bit of rogue shadow to drive this a little darker and browner. That's a little better. I'm going to try that. Alrighty, let us get this on. So the first place I'm going to shade is going to be, and that might not even be enough. We'll try it. Again, remember I'm thinning this, so that means the color you see isn't necessarily the color you get because it's much lighter when you thin it. So I may have to add more rogue shadow. I'm going to try it down the part of the hair. And I'm thinking that this isn't enough. Because remember, you got to boost your shadows and highlights. You can see it a little bit there, but it's not enough. So I'm going to add in more of my rogue shadow. It's still red. It's dropping darker now. So because rogue shadow is kind of a really, really dark reddish liner, it works well for red hair. There we go. That's a nice dark. There we see. See it? So we had to add actually quite a bit of liner to get this to the point where I feel like it can be used to make different locks of hair stand out, which is what I want to do with the shadow. Any big lock of hair that's separate from the other locks, I want to add that shadow between the two. And then I will use more separation with highlights, create more separation with highlights. But we'll start with shadows. See how that brings out those different strands of hair now. So for shadows, I will just apply that to my darkest areas or my deepest cuts between locks of hair. And a little bit way down, like toward the bottom here, where it goes into shadow, I'll probably paint a fair amount of shadow just straight over these locks. Especially because his head is tilted back, and as you can see, if we tilt him appropriately to the light source, his back of his head is in shadow. So painting this over with this auburn color is actually pretty much the right move if you're paying attention to light direction. So shadow. Now on this side, we've got a lot of strands, i.e. locks of hair. On a big model, these would be strands. On a little model, these are entire pieces or locks of hair. There we go. All right. We'll see how that works. That's pretty good. back of the part. All right. Now let's consult our highlight. And likewise, I'm going to be adding some red to this. I'm probably not going to add violet red to this. I'm probably going to add fire red to this. So highlight orange. Let's go with 4 drops of highlight orange and 1 drop of fire red. And the fire red's probably going to punch, like really going to punch this highlight orange toward the pink orange region, German orange, but we'll see. I might not use a whole drop. I might just do that. Squeeze a little bit out and just pop it against the wall of your palette, and you've got about a half drop. It's definitely shifted it toward like kind of a coral, a muted coral color. And then I'm going to go actually and grab some white, create an even more highlight color. Now, red hair really does tend to highlight up when the light catches it. It goes quite orange. So I can bring in a little bit of a brighter orange. Oh, I can if my pokey tool functions. Oh, noes! My pokey tool got left in the other room. Let's try this. Yeah, there we go. Ah! So I can add some brighter orange in if I want. As I throw my brush everywhere and my paint everywhere, because that's apparently my MO today. Swirl. There, that's more of a catching the light kind of color, right? And now we got this over here with a little bit of white in it. So we'll try both of these. This might be my better highlight, the one on the right. They're both doable. Okay, let's see here. Let's just try that first highlight, which is a bit of the highlight orange with a touch of fire red and a drop of sunrise orange in it. This is going to be going on a lot over the top of his head. So just hitting it there. Now his hair is kind of like mine. So if you look at my hair right now, you see the highlight shape, right? It goes around the side and you get a shadow next to the part. And then you've got another shadow down here. So that's something we need to keep in mind as we bring these highlights in, that you're going to have a shadow near to the part and then the highlight's going to come in. And it's kind of going to go around the head. And I might ignore all my strands and just paint a solid band at this point. Oh, I just found a mold line. Ah, mold line, ah! The mold lines are attacking this stream. Like, total mold line attacks. There, much better. All right, so a bit of brightness right around here. Yes, exactly. The color hair you wanted when you were a teenager, Nico. I had my light brown and I wanted dark hair so bad. Everybody wants what they don't have. So around the end of the part here, I want a little bit of a halo type of highlight. So a little bit of a circular highlight around here. Got a little bit too much shadow back here, so I'm going to bring in my original color a little. So for highlights on hair, I do tend to say block them in. Don't worry about between the strands, just kind of block in a line of highlight. You can always separate these out very easily with shadow later. So I'm laying the foundation for a nice highlight around the top of the head. And then it goes out on this side. You get a little bit of the base red color in the middle. But this is going to let us transition to our higher highlight. You can see that line of highlight going right there, just like it is on my hair now. Hey, PG Wodehouse was very good. I enjoy Wodehouse. Red hair is dangerous. Mm-hmm. All right. There. Got a little bit of a mold line there, so I had to correct it. And then bringing in this brighter orange. I definitely want the end of this to be in the light. It's swinging out. How did Rhonda paint this guy? Was it silver hair or dark hair? I can't remember. All right, so now let's go on with our next highlight. We can see a little bit of that highlight coming in here. Actually, I'm going to touch up this last little bit. I'll bring a little bit of it here where the hair, wherever the hair like kind of sweeps out, it'll catch the light. Dark gray or dark. All right, so now I'm going to come in with this orange that has more white in it. And here's where I'll kind of start suggesting strands by putting individual little lines if I can, if there's room. And if not, if there's not room to suggest more strands, then I'll just pick up the locks that I see, make sure that I'm making those little lines to bring out the different parts of the hair. And whereas the previous orange, I just blocked it in and I didn't even care about strands, here with my highlight color, I am going to care about strands. Ah, dark with blue-gray highlights. Got it. Thank you. Now I'm going to want highlight right at the part here. If you see it on my hair, you can definitely see like that light going right up there. There's still a little bit of dark on the inside, but our lining takes care of that. So here we want this light like right up next to this part. And I am going to bring up a little bit of highlight there. So now it's sliding more toward, you see how that's changed the color. It slides it a little bit more toward a lighter orange. It is making his face look really washed out, so I may actually have to bring in a little bit of a darker skin tone. Though with redheads, you're going to get that really pale look. So I'm kind of split on this one. So a little bit of hair highlighting here where this comes out. A little bit, hit it down here. Bring out those colors. That's looking nice actually. And I'm going to bring up more highlights on the skin so that it will be a little bit more three-dimensional. It's very, very pale right now. Oh, time check. Oh, you're right. Thanks, Quindy. Yeah, well, that's actually a pretty good stop point. We've blocked in a lot of our orangey highlights. We haven't gone up to our final highlight on the hair yet. But it has mitigated its immediate bright oranginess. I want to bring it out a little bit more on this. And this is where maybe I have to go and grab some of my original color. If I feel like I've gotten too much shadow here, which sometimes you do, your shadow can get a little too strong. You lose some of the life in your hair. You can bring that back in a bit, especially if you put one of these lighter oranges underneath and then paint your base coat over the top. You can bring in more details like that. So when it comes down to it, you don't see hard shadows in hair like you do in other stuff because hair is translucent. Light is always passing through it. Now here, the shadow we're seeing on the back here is the shadow for the back of the head. So that's a little bit different. But still, if we wanted to hint, if we don't want to lose all of our mid-tone, we can bring in a little bit of this highlight color and then grab our base coat, kind of paint that over the top to regain a little bit of life back here. It's still more in shadow, but we want to be able to see those strands. There we are. So that's starting to look pretty cool. Excellent. Yes. We're getting there. We're getting there. I'm wishing I went a little darker with the skin. Fair skin is hard to paint because it's so easy for it to look washed out. On camera, it tends to look quite washed out, which is a bummer, but it is doing all right on this model. So we'll keep working with it when we come back. Anyway, so there we go, guys. Yep, we've got the hair in place here. We got the skin at least blocked in with the first levels of highlight on it. We can still do more, just like we can do more pretty much everywhere. But for now, we've set him up pretty well to succeed. And a very different color scheme than Rhonda, which is what I was aiming for. Make sure we get different versions of this guy out there. So thank you all for tuning in. Tomorrow we're going to be doing this guy again. I will probably do wood and leather. Block that in. We're progressing pretty far. As I mentioned, later on, probably next week, we'll be working on the base for one of the dragons from Bone 6. Doing a lot of stonework and cool basing stuff. So that'll be fun. I'll look and see if I have any twigs we can use as fallen logs and tree branches on this base. And yeah, we'll see you tomorrow for the Friday edition of Reaper Pro Tips. Thanks, everybody, and have a great one.